Okay, so at the end of last class, I'm going to very quickly go through some of the things we talked about at the end of last class, try to continue it, and then I really want to get on to a couple new topics. So we talked about a book. So I was fortunate, I was at the rabbi's house the following night after the class, and I asked him, so R.A. Kaplan, what do you think? He gave me this book, which I read, If You Were God. It's a terrific book. I think you'd all very much enjoy it. It speaks about a lot of the same themes that we talked about. Some of it's in the same words that we used, and some of it's in slightly different words. Like he talks about the topic of bread of shame, but he doesn't use the words bread of shame. He talks about bread and then goes right into shame. And you'll see the connection yourself if you choose to read it. But I think you'll follow. You'll follow the ideas of free will. You'll follow the ideas of the role of the Yetzer Hara. You probably enjoy it. There's probably many other books by him that you would enjoy as well. But this is R.A. Kaplan. On here it's spelled A-R-Y-E-H. Kaplan, K-A-P-L-A-N. I've seen it spelled actually a couple different ways, but that's how this one says. Okay, where we left off last week. So we were talking about the idea that now that we have a strong introduction about what the wisdom of Kabbalah represents, what the study, the Pardes, everything from the Pshat, the simplest, all the way through the secrets that we're studying here, what it all means, what our role is in the world. So the question comes up, so what's the big challenge? Why is it so difficult to just do what we were supposed to do in this world? And we talked about three specific hindrances, blockages that are there to stop us. The first was ourselves. The second was the Yetzer Hara. And the third was the Erev Rav. So I'm going to expand on each one of those very, very briefly as we continue the idea of, so what do we do now? Right? So that's the bottom line, because clearly we're not all tzaddikim in this room. We're not all righteous. We haven't all figured out all the secrets of life, despite the fact that we've got a lot of tools and a lot of great people and a lot of great books to read and a lot of terrific information and resources. So it must be that there's things we can do to get a little bit closer. So one of the things that we can do, that again, this was kind of where we left off last week, was we can learn to question and view everything differently. So every situation that we see that we come upon, or every situation that looks like it's happening to me, I can make the choice to reverse the situation and see that what's happening to me is merciful and is good for me, because that ultimately is what this world was created for. This world was created by God for me to receive all of His goodness. Me personally, and you personally, and you personally. Each one of us individually. The world was created for each one of us individually to receive all of God's goodness. So it must be that if I'm encountering any situation, reading anything, having a conflict with a person, in a car accident, God forbid, there's something about it that I can reverse and have the opportunity to see that this is mercy, this is merciful, and this is good for me. And that's the beginning. That's part of the beginning of how we can change things. Yeah.
Can you look at if something happens as being, not necessarily good for me in the sense of the immediate reward of what's happening, but the fact that if something happens, it may cause you to reevaluate your situation, your life, things that you're doing, or kind of like a wake-up call. Would that fit into this kind of a thing?
It's a part of it. So that's something that you hear. Let's say that's something you would hear talked about more commonly. It's a very strong and important interpretation of the bad things that happen to us, and we should be aware of that. So we should be able to say, why did I stub my toe? That's a little bit of a pinch by the Creator. Say, hey, maybe you're not on the right path. It's important and it's relevant. It's not exactly what we're talking about in this class because we're trying to dig a little deeper. So we're going to get back into that topic. I think next week we're going to talk about the technology of receiving, because that's what we're talking about here, right? Receiving all of God's goodness. Kabbalah, that's what it means to receive. So what are you receiving when you get a stubbed toe? You know? And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what the technology of receiving is and how it is in addition to what you're talking about. Okay, so something else. So I brought out this book. It's called Mesilat Yesharim. This is a book written by the Ramchal. We spoke briefly about the Ramchal. I think 2 weeks ago when we had our last class. So he actually gives specific steps, and that's each chapter here is organized as a step along the path to perfection. And the idea here is that it's very organized. It's structured in a way that it gives you a life path, basically. So the very first chapter, this book uses the word vigilance. The copy the English translation I was reading used the word watchfulness. And here's one of the things that the Ramchal says about watchfulness. If one is not watchful over himself, the Holy One, blessed be He, will certainly not watch over him. For if he gives no heed to himself, if a person doesn't take care of himself, who should take care of him for him? This is, as our sages of blessed memory have said, it is forbidden to pity anyone who has no knowledge. And this is the meaning of what they said, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? Imein anili mili. Maybe you've heard this from Pirkei Avot. Imein anili mili. So, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? So, the idea...
I think there is a continuance to that sentence that is kind of...
Uchshani la'atzmi mani, you're talking about from Pirkei Avot. Yeah, but right now we're talking about Imein anili mili.
Okay.
Because often the idea of Imein anili mili can be translated as it's selfishness. I'm into myself. If I don't take care of myself, who's going to be there for me? But actually what it's saying is, if you're not watchful over your own actions, nobody can force you into that. Nobody can make you be watchful. Nobody can coerce you and force you. That is the aspect of free will. And in fact, one of the things that we talked about is that we have very little free will in this world. One of the free will that we have is basically we can choose how to react to something. And one of the commentaries that I saw to this particular section of Pirkei Avot was saying basically we have no free will except for one thing. Yirat Hashamayim, the fear of the heavens. We'll go into what fear of heavens means again in some other class, but for our purposes, the fear of heavens means if you don't awaken within yourself the fear of losing your connection to your Creator, nobody can do that on your behalf. So that's going back. What's stopping us? Ourselves. That's the very first thing. How are we stopping ourselves? The Ramchal is telling you. The Ramchal is saying if you do not choose watchfulness, if you do not choose to wake up, if you do not choose im einani limili, that I am first for myself, Hashem cannot be there for you. And you need Hashem. Trust me. We'll get there as well. But you must have Hashem. None of us can do this job on our own. Another aspect of this, we talk about the Yetzer Hara. And we need to understand that we're being fooled all the time. And so here's something else that the Ramchal says about the Yetzer Hara. So one of the things that I had shared, one of the common sayings, it's in this great movie, Usual Suspects, the greatest trick that the Satan ever played on us is convincing the world that he doesn't exist. So it's true, but here's what the Ramchal adds. He's saying this is one of the cunning strategies of the evil inclination. Here's what this is. To relentlessly burden people's hearts with his service so as to leave them no room to reflect and consider which road they are taking. In other words, you're busy. You're just busy all the time. And you've always got something that needs attending to. That's a trick of the Yetzer Hara, which means that I would guess for most of us in this room, we're being tricked all the time. We are constantly feeling like I've got something I've got to be doing now. And that thing that we've got to be doing is something in physicality. It's work. It's paying a bill. It's driving to this place. It's moving furniture. Whatever it is, it's grounded in the idea that the Yetzer Hara is constantly distracting us from our real work in this world. Because our real work is the spiritual work, not the physical work. Okay? So we are constantly being tricked and deceived and distracted all the time. Okay, one of the other things that we can do, we need to work. We need to work hard at it. We cannot say, okay, I'm going to go to Thursday night class from 7:30 to 8:30, and that's all I need. I'm good. This is like exercising. This is like learning a new subject. You have to exercise those skills, and you have to work them constantly. And that's actually that's part of the trick of the Erev Rav. The Erev Rav wants to just kind of fill you with useless information. Just kind of wants to distract you with worldly matters that keep you from the hard work that you have to do. So why does politics exist in the world? Why does war exist in the world? These are actually the tricks of Esav, of the Erev Rav, we'll talk about this later, but this idea of right column. The right side, the side of strength, is the one that is constantly getting us involved in worldly matters. Yeah.
Okay, Erev Rav is a partner to Satan, or what?
It's not the way that I've learned it because Satan is, let's call him an angel. The Zohar actually says that Satan and the angel of death are one and the same. And the Erev Rav is something that's here in our physical world. Not that the angel of death isn't here in our physical world, but it's more of a spiritual entity that controls things, non-physical things like our thoughts. That's why we're so easily distracted. Our thoughts are so easily distracted because there are spiritual forces, non-physical forces that are there to distract me. And they're normally the ones that distract me a lot easier than the forces of good, the force of Hashem and the force of the angels who are trying to, the joke, the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder. It's kind of not a joke, except for the angel that's on one shoulder. He's about this big, and his voice is always hoarse. You can barely hear him. And the devil on this side, he's got a megaphone, and he's the cards are stacked in his favor. And again,
There are two entities.
There are two entities. You could even say again, there's three entities. One, ourself.
Okay.
Two, the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. Three, the Erev Rav, which the first time you see the term Erev Rav in the Bible, it's talking about the people who came out with the Israelites from Egypt. And again, it's often translated the mixed multitudes.
Is that the Asaf Suf? Or that's different?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm really not sure.
Those in Kivot HaTe'ara that were sinful and they asked for...
But those were Jews, weren't they?
No,
in that case?
Those were the ones that
Accompanied the Jews
from Egypt, that supported the Jews in Egypt and were okay to go on the journey.
They were fair weather friends, so to speak. It looks good for us to walk out with the Jews, so we will. So right now we'll play the Jew card and walk out. But the rest of the time we're still going to kind of do our own thing.
That's the Erev Rav.
And they continue to be punished. So again, I'm talking about the Erev Rav. I can't tell you for sure if it's the same thing as what you're talking about, but it sounds the same. So they continue to be punished, and they will. But in the meantime, their job is to punish us. I remember going back a couple classes, we talked about why are they punishing us? They're punishing us to purify us, that we become like silver and gold through their punishments. That's why we are in Egypt. We are in Egypt to become cleansed of our negativity.
So they work for Hashem.
They believe it or not, they all work for Hashem.
Okay.
Even, and we'll get back to that as well, but even the Satan, even the Yetzer Hara, is an aspect of Hashem. And it's part of what creates our free will. They are the biggest parts of what create our free will. So the Erev Rav is something that exists physically around us. It's the side of Esav. It's the physical
Esav?
aspect.
Okay, I
It's
didn't know what you were
Yaakov's
saying.
brother.
I didn't know the word.
Yeah, Yaakov's brother Esav.
Esav, okay.
Esau.
I didn't know what you were saying.
I never know which way to say it, but it's his lineage that distracts us constantly. By the way, it's not the Arabs. We'll get back to that another time.
Oh, that's good.
Well, except for Esav's lineage is much bigger and has been guilty of much more death in the world over the course of history. So it's good on one hand that we will again come back to, but in the meantime, we need to understand it's a force that we need to battle against. And like I said, that the force appears in the way of you turn on the news and it's just bad news. And you hear politics and it doesn't really matter whether you're a righty or a lefty or a centrist or a socialist or, a communist. It all sounds terrible. It all sounds like the world is about to end. Esav, Erev Rav, that's what it is. So I don't want to go so far yet as to say that none of that matters, but we have a job to do that is separate and independent. And if we allow ourselves to be distracted by those things, we won't be able to overcome them. We have tools to overcome them rather than battling them directly. That's the idea. That's the idea of the spiritual tools. And even in this week's parsha, this week's parsha. So this is the meeting of Jacob and Esav, of Yaakov and Esav. They're meeting for the first time in, I think, 34 years. And if you read the aspects of how Jacob goes about preparing for his meeting with Esav, you see that there is constantly two different forces that he's using to prepare. He's using the physical things of sending gifts. There's actually three things that he's doing. He's sending gifts, he's praying, and he's actually preparing for war. He's preparing for, hey, what if it all doesn't work? Despite the fact that he has the prophecy from God that he is the leader of the Jewish people. Despite that, and that he's going to lead them into Israel. It doesn't matter. He still has to prepare in all those ways.
So when you're talking about distractions, that the news or lefty or righty, etc., and what we call in common people as reality, and you say that somewhat it's distraction to what you're supposed to do, which is study and be, spiritual, etc. But where I see collusion between the two is when people that study the Torah and are, to their mind, spiritual, and they put aside the reality, which affects them, which they believe that it doesn't, there's a contradiction over there that to me disturbs, like in Israel, the fact if you go to the military.
I figured that's where you were going with this, yeah.
I mean, it's
constantly. Yeah. And it has been for 2 or 3 decades now, but especially in the last few months.
Because not only for that, in my mind, I have other things which are not relevant, but where reality with spirituality, and that reality is irrelevant. So it, believe it or not, you may hate my answer, but I'm quite comfortable giving you this answer. That discussion about whether this is the right discussion is also a distraction. So the idea that there are people in a religious context who are saying, hey guys, you know why Israel survives? Because of us, because I'm sitting here studying Torah. There is a truth to that. And there's the people in the military who forsake God day in and day out, meaning, they have no
They have no relationship with God whatsoever. They've never been religious. They've been secular. And they're the ones who are going through basic training. And they're the ones who are being sent to Lebanon and to Gaza. And they're the ones who are defending us and saying, hey, guys, wake up to reality. You wouldn't be able to study if I wasn't defending our borders. There's also truth to that.
Yeah.
So what are we supposed to do about it? We're supposed to study Torah. Forget about the people who are off the deep end over here, and forget about the people who are off the deep end over here. Most people are neither one of those. They're somewhere in between, which hopefully represents the people who are in this room. And the more that we invest ourselves in the spiritual awakening, that those also are distractions, the more we will awaken the global consciousness of everybody and everything around us to realize that it's not relevant. It's not.
There's no any supposedly appreciation for that reality, or what we call reality as fighting in the military, etc., etc.
Oh, that's not
No. Well, hold on. There's no need to become distracted by the argument about it. That's what I'm saying. There's no need to do that. Again, coming back to the idea that the entire world was created just for you. So who can affect the consciousness of the religious person who is just, and again, I'm not trying to take a political position here. I'm saying people have the position that a religious person who spends all of his time in yeshiva is just a drag on the government and the people around him, and the opposite, the secular Jew in the army who feels like those religious people are just a drag on his ability, right? Both of these arguments exist, and neither one of them matter, because the world, in your perspective, wasn't created for them. It was created for you. So there's only one thing you can do, and that's to take care of yourself. And if everybody else were to focus on that idea, and when I say everybody, we're not talking about 7 billion people. We're not even talking about the 16, 18, 20 million Jews, 14 million, whatever the number is. We're talking about some tiny critical mass that will bring the entire world to Mashiach consciousness. That's where we want to get to. And it's available to us. It's possible. Through a very, very small awakening. But there's only one person, one thing that we can focus on. Im ein ani li mili. If I don't choose to awaken myself and recognize that it's my job to build my own connection to the Creator, and instead I get distracted about what this person said or what that person said, I'm doing the entire world a disservice.
Yeah, it's just a problem with our whole Adadis between Adam and Chavero.
I totally and completely get it. And it's a process to work through to get to a point where you feel you don't need to be distracted by that.
But it's supposed to be a value between Adam and his friend or his companion.
And there is, whether you see it or not, or whether it's as strong as you would like it to be, it's not your job to figure it out for that person.
Is it possible, even though it doesn't seem like it maybe makes a lot of sense, but, okay, is it reasonable to just assume the position, we are where God wants us to be? If I'm a religious-minded person, then I'm where I'm supposed to be right now. If I'm fighting in the military, then I'm where God wants me to be for right now.
Yes, for yourself. But I think part of what forgive me out loud if I'm not speaking about it correctly. But I think the idea would be you're looking at other people and how they are, because you can look at that for yourself. You can say, I'm where I'm supposed to be. But I'm frustrated by where that person over there thinks that he or she is where they are supposed to be.
But is it not possibly true that if they weren't there, I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at?
Also true, yes, because the entire world, including that person doing that thing, was created for you.
So doesn't that mean we're all where we're supposed to be at any particular given
But
time?
it doesn't forgive the idea, because if you look at yourself, just look from your own perspective, you can't look at this and say, well, I'm where I'm supposed to be, so I'm just going to keep on being who I am and doing what I'm doing.
Oh, I see. Okay, so if
Right?
I take that and go to sleep with it, then but if I take that position,
You use it to awaken yourself.
Okay.
And again, I think a lot of, especially people, when I say people, I'm including myself, when they first start the study of any spiritual path, they begin to feel that they're awakened and the rest of the world is dead. It's very easy to see things that way. And to see, I wish that guy would wake up. I wish she had been in this class, because then I could have told her off about all the things she's been doing wrong. It's very easy to do. It's very exciting to do. It's like, look, all these years I've been right. Finally, the rabbi, the teacher, the book, the YouTube told me, finally, I'm right. But that's again, looking external to ourselves. It means getting caught up both in the Yetzer Hara and the thoughts that don't make any sense, and in Esav and the Erev Rav and what they're trying to do around us to distract us.
But you're supposed to be passive or active about this?
Active for yourself about this.
I'm not supposed to help other people to pull them to the right direction, or should I?
If you feel that you are truly able to do so, without any judgment, without any missed opportunity for yourself, without any impatience about how long it's taking them to get there. If you really think that you can do that, yes, that's part of your mission. That's part of all of our missions. That is our...
Because that's bring us to the Geulah.
That's right. We have an individual tikkun that we need to overcome, and we have a global tikkun. The global tikkun is to help lift others. But normally, the way we lift others is by being an example, not by pulling them. Right? So we shine our own light, and if we're able to do so, and I think there's many, many stories, not just spiritual stories, but not just religious stories, but you watch movies or you read books and you see these ideas that the way that somebody is truly inspiring is by just living their life the way that is true for them, and other people begin to see, well, geez, if that's working for them, maybe that would work for me too. Maybe I should live a little bit more of a true life. Doesn't mean I'm going to live your life, but I see that you're living an inspired life. I'm seeing that maybe it's Torah study is working for you. I'm like, why would I waste my time studying Torah? But suddenly I begin to see, wow, I've been watching you going to this Torah class for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and you're happier. And you're not making any more money. I'm just giving an example, but you're happier. You're living a more fulfilled life. Maybe this Torah thing, it's got something to it. And you're not preaching to me. You're not trying to drag me along. Maybe you ask me here and there if I want to go, but you're not dragging me along. And this type of example can really be inspiring.
Will inspire you to act more honestly in your business dealings, hopefully, and that is taking yourself and being an example to other people is by doing everything in an honest way.
All right, so I'm hoping this will be a very good segue to what I really want to talk about tonight, which there's no chance I'm going to finish. So, which is fine. We can do a part 1 and a part 2 again.
Sorry.
Oh, it's fantastic. I think these are terrific questions, and it's very, very good to not only to challenge me, but hopefully to be challenging your own thoughts about how you've looked at these things and to continue to explore them in a different way. I mean, that's how I kind of started this idea of what's the first thing we can do. We can challenge the way we question the things around us and try to figure out what's in it for me. What am I seeing around me, and how does it benefit me? Okay, so the thing I really want to talk about tonight, what can we do? We can get ourselves a teacher. We can get ourselves a rabbi. We can get ourselves a spiritual guide. And I'm not just saying we can, we need to. We cannot survive without that. We cannot survive the process of progressing in our spiritual path without having a guide and a teacher. So I'm going to talk about some of the language that the Kabbalists use to define a teacher or a rabbi. Yeah.
Can you, for example, just read the Torah by yourself and try to receive some divine guidance instead of following a rabbi or somebody else?
So let's go ahead and through this, and then you can ask me the question at the end. You'll tell me what you think. Okay, so teacher. So the Zohar refers to a teacher as representing the level of Ze'er Anpin. So when we look at the Eser Sfirot, the 10 dimensions that come from Keter down to Malchut, Malchut being our world of physicality, the kingship. Ze'er Anpin is the 6 levels that kind of hover over the top of us. Those 6 levels are like the filtration system that allows us to receive the incredible light force of the Creator that's way overwhelming and way too much for us, and to receive it in a filtered and diminished way so that we can actually accept it and absorb it. So a teacher represents the level of Ze'er Anpin, and that means that the student represents the level of Malchut. So it means a teacher is, in essence, the one that is filled with the light force of the Creator, and Malchut has no light of its own. So another equivalent to that is the sun represents Ze'er Anpin, the moon represents Malchut. The moon is able to reflect light to us, but it has no light of its own. Its light is received from the sun, reflected off the moon, and that's how we're able to see it. So it's the same idea between a teacher and a student. So now what's the role of Ze'er Anpin and Malchut? So what's the role between God and us? We are supposed to awaken our desire to receive His goodness. That's the job of Malchut, is to receive. So how do you receive? You awaken desire. We're going to talk again about that whole technology of receiving, probably not next class now, probably 2 classes from now. But we're going to talk about that technology. But it's the same idea. So the teacher is the sun. The student is the moon. The teacher is the light force of the Creator that hovers above us. The student is the one that needs to awaken a desire in order to receive all that light. We're not going to call it wisdom. We're not going to call it information. We're going to call it light. That's what they're there for. So the student is there to awaken a desire to receive something that the teacher wants to share. So some of the things that further define a teacher, in order for somebody to be your teacher, and again, I'm using the word teacher in a very general sense. It could mean rabbi, it could mean other spiritual guide. We'll even talk about how it could mean parent, but it might not. That teacher needs to have their own teacher. So one of your first signs that somebody's a legitimate teacher is that they're referring to the teachings that they are receiving from their teacher. Does that make sense? So, for example, I know Rabbi Wein will often refer to one of his original teachers, the Rosh Yeshiva, where he went in Jerusalem to Rabbi Noach Weinberg. He actually will cite him often. And actually, if we get anywhere near the end, I might have a short story that Rabbi Wein shared with me about an interaction he had with his rabbi, with Rabbi Weinberg. If they don't have their own teacher, they're not a teacher. It's really that simple. A teacher tells the truth. And when I say tells the truth, again, it's interesting. Rabbi Anderson spoke about this idea this past Shabbat. He spoke this idea that many people have this idea of the truth. They read something and then they develop an idea from that they recognize as the truth. But that doesn't make it the truth. Just because you awaken within yourself an idea from something, it doesn't make it the truth. You have to dig deeper, and you have to trust that a teacher should be able to cite their sources. Not just even their teacher, but to be able to cite a particular book, to be able to give you a particular story, to tell you about a particular experience, and be able to tell it to you in a way that gives you this idea of truth. And actually, even the Ari, I was just reading this today, Rabbi Chaim Vital, when he writes about the Ari would express himself in a way that he would distinguish between when he was citing something that he learned, let's say either through Ruach HaKodesh, through divine inspiration, or from some previous sage, versus when it was his own original thought. He would say, it seems to me, it looks to me, it seems to me. So even the Ari, who we know was channeling from above, I mean, this is certainly the greatest Kabbalist of the last 500 years, if not, in fact, of history, that even he would make it clear when something was his own original thought, even though you know it had to been the truth or he wouldn't have said it, versus when it was something that he had sourced somewhere else. If a teacher or guide is not able to do that, again, they're not a true teacher. They're not a true guide, not a true spiritual guide. You need to be awakened to more than just what the teacher says. If you're only awakened to what the teacher says, you're back in the Yetzer Hara. You're back in the idea of it being distraction. It's just information. If somebody reads and they read very nicely, somebody speaks and they speak very eloquently, that's all very good and fine. But that's on the level of distraction. Something needs to be awakened within you that you can't necessarily explain. Anybody can speak to your body. Anybody can speak to you and say words to you and awaken something in you physically. But it takes a teacher to awaken your soul. And that's, most people feel that. They can't explain it. They don't know what it is, but they sense it and they feel it, and it's a positive feeling. A true teacher needs you more than you need them. We'll get back to that idea a little bit later on, because the reverse is also true. Again, you can't go without them. However, the essence of a teacher is like a parent and a child. A parent wants to give more to their child than their child could ever receive. There's a story in the Talmud that talks about the idea that a cow wants her calf to feed more than the calf wants to eat. She has that innate sense of wanting to share. And again, I think if we think about it from that idea, from that level, you see certain people and they seem to be natural parents, even before they have kids. You just see that, like, they want to take care of others, whether it's a child or whether it's somebody else. They have that built inside them. And you notice that, and that's true of a teacher as well. A teacher wants to impart inspiration, not just information, again, inspiration, guidance, desire, influence, more than the student would be able to handle it. It's something, again, you will naturally see in them. Now, a good teacher will know when to stop also. Will understand when, okay, this is more than the student can handle. But a teacher in general is somebody who needs you because they have more to share than you could ever even receive. A teacher has their own mission, and it's a mission that you can believe in. When you look at, a lot of people will see, oh, they're a rabbi. What does a rabbi do? A rabbi stands in front of the congregation and they give a lecture, and hopefully they raise some money on Yom Kippur and da-da-da-da-da. But if you get to know rabbis individually, you'll notice that most of them have their own individualized motivations and their own things about what they do and their own characteristics that keep them going day to day, and their own way by which to draw people closer to God, closer to their congregation, closer to fellow man. And they each have their own unique way of doing that, and that's their mission that you need to feel connected to. The word Rav, it's kind of interesting. One of the roots for the word Rav. So sometimes you'll hear somebody refer to, instead of rabbi or rebbe, you'll hear them say Rav. So the word Rav comes from the idea of fighting. Hu Rav, he's fighting. I mean, that's literally what it means. The word Rav means fighting, that root. And what's a Rav fighting? He's fighting the Yetzer Hara on your behalf. He's fighting so that you can be awakened. And that's also an aspect of a teacher. A teacher is always there to fight alongside you.
Is that like Erev Rav?
Is that like Erev Rav?
Yeah, didn't you? You said it was mixed multitude, so I'm thinking now it's mixed fighting.
It's like what's the cage match? Is that mixed fighting?
No, I'm just saying.
I don't know.
Is there a connection?
I don't know what the literal
Rav's
translation is of Erev Rav.
Right? Rav's are big.
Yeah, Rav is also
Flower.
another meaning is a lot.
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why they put evening Erev
Right.
Rav. Like I don't know why.
I don't either.
Yeah,
I really don't know
if
the
you
answer.
speak the language, sometimes you don't think about things
Right.
that other people do. Right? That's how it goes.
Yeah. I'll try and look it up. I'll see if there's a significance behind it.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. It's fair. And actually, again, it is a good thing to question because the Torah does not mess with words. It has a specific reason for using words in the way that it does. And I can't tell you what it is in this particular case, but it's always good to question it. It's always good to say, why does it use the same word here and here? There has to be a connection. Has to be. There's no mistakes in the Torah. A rabbi or a teacher will, in some way through the lineage, will connect you back to the Creator. Has to. They have to, even if they're not speaking about God, which again, like a non-religious teacher might not. They might use other terms. They have to be somehow. Their language has to be like again one of truth, and that one that connects you to the world and the creation of the world. It has to somehow get back to that source. And then, lastly, there's probably many other things, but these are some of the things that I found in some of the writings. A teacher will help you build your own strength, and when you become strong, when you become confident or self-confident without your ego, or with as little ego as possible, when you become self-confident, you begin to learn from everything and everyone. And that's there's again in Pirkei Avot, there's the idea of Ezehu Chacham Halomed Mikol Adam. So the true secret of Halomed Mikol Adam, who is the wise one, the one who learns from every person, okay? The true connection to that is that you have such an inner strength, such a confidence, that no matter what somebody says to you, does to you, or even physical things says or does to you, the chair falls over on your toe again, you stub your toe. I don't know why I keep on going back to stub toes, but whatever. That you're able to learn from that circumstance. You don't have to, somebody says something that's tough for you to hear, you don't feel the need to defend yourself because a teacher, a rabbi has awakened within you the strength to understand that you have something to learn from everything and everyone.
Israelis never heard of that.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, that is the ultimate essence of learning from everything and everyone around you is and I don't really know of anyone who has that automatic inner strength to do that. So some of the things that a teacher can do for you. So there's the idea of, we talked a little bit about this idea of the light being the essence of the Creator in this world. So there's multiple aspects to that light. So one of the aspects to that light, or one of the multiple aspects, is inner light, or pnimi, and surrounding light, or makif. And just as an example, the men that you see that will wear the the undergarment that has the fringes on it, the tzitzit. It's called the talit katan. That represents or panimi. It's to help build and awaken the inner light, which is your natural tendencies, the things that you came to this world already imbued with. And the talit gadol, the big talis that they wear during prayers over them, mostly in most traditions, only married men wear them. So that awakens or makif, surrounding light. So one of the reasons why a man only wears talit gadol after he's married is because he can't really awaken his potential, his surrounding light, the things that he's yet to become until he's married. That's the truth. A woman completes a man. It's not true the other way around. We'll talk about that again
But they
another
are
point.
allowed to wear the talit after 13?
It depends. There are other minhagim where they do wear after bar mitzvah, because there is an aspect of your potential that is awakened when you become bar mitzvah.
Right.
But your true potential, your complete potential, cannot be awakened until you become married. So there's a partial potential that becomes available as a bar mitzvah, but the complete potential can't be until you're married. So again, different minhagim, same idea, which I'm not sure everybody could tell you about, could connect you to, but that's the idea. So the or pnimi is that which I came with, and you may hate to hear this, but no matter how good you are, if it's in your inherent nature to be that good, you're not doing anybody any good. Believe it or not, you're not doing anybody any good. If you are simply using the natural capacity, capability, knowledge, skills, compassion, even mercy, consideration, human dignity that you came to this world with, that you were born with, it's not doing you any good, and it's not doing the world any good.
I don't know if I would agree with that.
So,
That is
I mean,
really hard for me to agree.
Sure, I understand.
So, I mean, explain. You gotta explain that.
So
'Cause
that's right, and that's what a teacher is there for. A teacher is there to awaken your potential. You didn't come here, as hard as it is to hear, you didn't come here to become good people. You came here to become better people. And that is true for the scum of the earth criminal, and that is true for the highest tzaddik who was born into a family of, tzaddikim, that came before him and came before him and came before him. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter actually even your religious background. It doesn't matter any of those things. You came here to be better people. You didn't come here to become the best people. That would be very nice, but that's not possible. We talked about that in an earlier class too. You didn't come here to move the rock. You came here to make the effort to push the rock. If you move the rock, that's pretty amazing. That means you've got some godly powers inside of you. But that's why I say you can't do this without God. Only God can move the rock. But if you make a consistent effort to push the rock, God will move the rock for you. And a teacher can do something similar for you. A teacher can awaken within you and help you connect you to your or makif, your surrounding light, the potential to be better than you came here. So we're all meant to become better in a different way, and we're meant to use the way that we came here, all the goodness that we already have inside of us, to become better. The only reason you're as good as you are right now is because you're supposed to use it to become better. And in most cases, only a teacher can awaken that within you. And that's the aspect of your soul. Your body didn't come here to become better. Nobody said in the Torah that your job is to build your muscles and to be able to bench press 20 pounds more or to be able to run a mile longer next week. Nobody said any of that. Is that great and useful and may help many people in their spiritual path? Absolutely it is. I don't want to take anything away from that. But a teacher is there to awaken your soul, to awaken something deeper inside you. And it even says, I wish I could tell you the sources of all these things. I didn't write them all down. I think this is from the Ari, that if a teacher is successful in awakening your soul to a higher level, to a higher realm, to creating a permanent improvement in who you are, that improvement will stay with you all the way until the time of immortality, the time of Tchiat HaMetim, the time of the coming of Mashiach. You won't have to make that improvement again. So we'll talk about reincarnation and things like that again in another class, but the idea, once you've made that, you can call it correction, you can call it improvement, once it's become permanent inside you, nobody can take it away from you. It's done. In your soul.
Is it like a tikkun?
What I read here didn't use the word tikkun, so I'm not sure I want to use a tikkun. It didn't say that it was an aspect of a correction. It didn't say that. Tikkun means correction.
You're aiming low.
What's that?
You're aiming very low.
What's that?
I mean, if someone believes that they can move the rock, let them try and move the rock.
Right.
Do you care?
Right. No, and that's the effort. So that's putting forth the effort,
will.
and maybe they will. Well, somebody in every generation is going to be able to. It's the question is, are we all going to awaken that person to do so? That's
If they can, if it's in them.
That's right. But that can only be done through a teacher. An individual realistically cannot accomplish that. They cannot accomplish that on their own. They cannot. They're too blind.
And the power of many.
Well, there is an aspect again to Halomed Mikol Adam, the ability to learn from your fellow man. But to awaken the true ability to learn means that you've gone to another level. You've actually improved. Again, I just hate to use the word tikkun because it's not what I read here, but it might be a legitimate word. But you've improved in a permanent way.
When you end slavery in the world, that's because many people were pushing to move that rock.
Right.
And eventually
But
some of it moved.
And I promise this is not a political statement, but do you really believe that we've ended slavery? Have we even ended slavery in the United States?
No, it's moving.
Right. Absolutely.
Compared to
Absolutely.
maybe 60 years ago.
No. And that's right. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. It doesn't, the fact that we can't do it without a teacher and then we can't do it without the help of Hashem doesn't mean that we aren't required to make the effort to try and that we aren't making a level of forward progress. But is it a permanent forward progress? See, that's again, it's these tricks that you say, oh, we're over that problem. We finished that, someday, God willing, this.
But we are
you're right.
Shoafim, we are aspiring.
Yeah.
But even if a person does move the rock, that's still Hashem. That's not just him.
And we'll get to that again, I hope, in the class where we talk about the technology of receiving, because the understanding of what we're receiving from moving the rock becomes very confusing when you think about the idea that Hashem has nothing that he needs from us, right? He needs us to move the rock. So we move the rock, but he doesn't need us to move the rock because he can't receive anything from us. Again, that gets back to the technology of receiving, which we'll get back to. I think it'll start to make more sense then. But in the meantime, yes, you have to make the effort. And if your effort is one that I'm going to try and move the rock, and maybe I'm even successful in moving the rock, if you want to consider an improvement that you've made in your soul level, if you want to consider that to be moving the rock, I think that's fair. I didn't necessarily read that anywhere, but I think it's a fair analogy.
You're saying we need to go past our nature.
Yes.
You want us to go past our nature. Our nature is to be kind to others. We're not doing any.
It isn't for all people, but let's say you can't.
Yeah.
Right.
No, my nature, let's say, is to be kind to others. It's not good enough.
I think the nature
Correct.
of the human being is not to be kind. If you look at a child is so selfish. At least the parent teach him to be nice. Every children is selfish, violent.
Not all. Some kids are inclinated to goodness.
Yes, it's true.
Regardless of that, the job that, by the way, kindness or sharing is just one idea. It's just one idea. There's thousands and thousands of different midot, of characteristics that we each need to improve within ourselves. And by the way, many of them, there's a very good chance we already improved because our soul has been here many times before.
And sometimes a person can really aggravate you, and in the end, they did you a tremendous favor.
That's right.
It was not,
That's right.
it was not anything they intended.
All right, we're going to do just a couple more things, and then I think as long as my list is here.
Go by already.
Yeah,
OMG.
yeah. I got 5 minutes left before we hit an hour on my reporting. So, okay. The Ari says that a teacher is higher than a parent. So you're supposed to, it says honor your father and your mother, right? Did you ever read honor your rabbi, your guru,
I learned it in Israel.
It's not one of the 10 commandments, though, right? So it's a little bit hard to understand. However, the honor of your father and your mother is a physical honor. It's an honor of physicality. Your parents physically brought you into this world. They gave you life. They did not give you your soul. Your soul came through another channel. And therefore, the awakening of your soul also comes through a different channel. It comes through the channel of a teacher. And the Ari further discusses the idea that a parent, I think he specifically talks about the idea of a father and a son, but it can be any parent. A father could be the teacher / rabbi to their child. They could be. Even if they are, it's two completely separate things. So a father being a father and receiving the honor of being a father is completely different than a father being a teacher and receiving the responsibility to awaken the Or Makif, the surrounding light of the soul within the child. They are two separate and essentially unrelated aspects. And in fact, again, in many lineages, you'll see that it was father, son, father, son, father, son, father, son-in-law, father, cousin, father, and there's a lineage break, and it's not necessarily because the father didn't have any sons. It doesn't always work that way. There are circumstances where that's not the right connection. The father was not able to act in the capacity of rabbi and awaken the Or Makif, the soul within the child, and have them carry on the lineage. It didn't work out. I can't go any deeper than that because I don't know any deeper than that, but it's an example of where you can see the idea of a father and a parent being different than a guide and a teacher. Physicality and spirituality, or pnimi and Or Makif. It's the same idea that just repeats. A teacher can be your mirror. So a teacher should be reflecting back onto you what you're basically reflecting to them. So they're able to see your character traits basically in a way that you can't see yourself. They're able to help you kind of remove your blindness by being your mirror. So, again, if you think in the physical realm, some of us we look in the mirror. We look in the mirror every day, after day, after day, whatever, brush our hair, make sure our tie is straight, make sure, everything, we don't have any dust on ourselves, whatever it is. And then one day you wake up and you say, oh, where did that come from? What's that gray hair? You think that gray hair just appeared? In most cases, not. Something that particular day awakened you to be able to see something that you weren't able to see in the days or weeks before that. And a rabbi is able to do that for you. A rabbi is able to remove your spiritual blindness. A rabbi is able to wipe the mirror clean and help you see things that you've been missing about yourself over a long period of time. And what they're also able to help you do is to remove the aspects of yourself that distract you from seeing it anyway. Again, you think about a mirror, If what you're always worried about is are your glasses on straight, maybe you'll miss the fact that your shirt wasn't tucked in. That's just, we all have those blindnesses. We're always focused on certain aspects that are important to us. So a teacher can help you remove the idea that you should be caught up in any one thing, that any particular aspect of ourselves is important enough to be distracted by, and therefore open up the idea that I need to get out of my own way. In order to see what I need to do in the world, my biggest obstacle is normally myself, is normally the fact that I'm blind to see the truth about myself, and that I'm the one who's in the way of me being able to see it. And if you're open with your own teacher, they can help you in every area. So this actually, Nancy, comes back a little bit to what you were saying about, well, if you learn more Torah, then you'll be more honest in your business. If you're more honest in your business, I don't remember exactly how you started, but it was that idea, right? So if you are open to your teacher and the things that your teacher tells you, then it will seem like they're helping you in this particular area. They came to you for advice, again, about business. And what did you learn? You learned about a particular mitzvah that deals with business. You learned about a particular, maybe it's not even directly related to business, but they awaken again within you something that is able to impact you in every area of your life, not just in the area that you asked for the assistance in, not just what you were talking about, not just what you were studying together, not just what you discussed, not just what was written in the book that you guys looked at, but actually it will create a larger awakening with all the other things we talked about here that will influence every area of your life.
Spill over.
It has to. It has to. And that, again, that's the last point I'm going to make tonight. And I think that is probably one of the most, if not the most significant thing that a teacher can do for you. A teacher can help you take the mundane, the simple, and make it exciting, and make it complicated. Not complicated from the standpoint of difficult, but right, and overwhelming and influential in every area. Seems like nothing, and suddenly you're seeing that little nothing in every single thing that you do, and it's sticking with you, and it's helping you in your relationships and in your business and in your own studies. And you begin to read even again the Torah from or Zohar or whatever you're reading from a different perspective, because something was awakened within you. Your business operates on a different level. You relate to your employees differently because just that little thing, that little simple thing was awakened to a much, much broader scope, a worldly scope. And they can do that with every meeting, with every discussion, with every aspect. And it's one of the most important parts of having a true teacher to guide you.
Who chooses who? You, the teacher, or the teacher chooses you? How do you get the right teacher?
Well, how do you know the
It's such a
teacher
great
is
question.
giving you the right
Yeah, that's-
misinformation?
Yeah, but basically that's the question. How do you choose it?
All right. I'll tell a quick story. My next topic was going to be, this topic was basically what a teacher can do for you, and the next topic I was going to talk about was what a teacher can't do for you. So I'll just hit one of the bullet items. So a teacher cannot help you if you shop around, if you're a spiritual shopper. Okay? It may not seem like I'm answering your question, but hopefully it will. So there's a story of Rav Zusha of Anipoli. So Rav Zusha was one of the holy brothers. That's what they called them Achim Kloshim. The Rav Zusha of Anipoli and Rabbi Elimelech of Lezhensk. And they were students of all of a sudden it's escaping me. This is the Chassidut. This is the lineage of the Baal Shem Tov. The Maggid of Mezrich. Okay, so the Baal Shem Tov had a student, his name was the Maggid of Mezrich. Maggid of Mezrich had many, many students. And Reb Zusha of Anapoli was the teacher of a particular successful businessman in the city of Anapoli. And this student was very, very successful. And one day he kind of awakened this idea within him that, well, if I'm so successful learning everything that I'm learning from Reb Zusha, imagine how successful I would be if I learned from the Maggid himself. So, packed up his things one day, and he went to Mezrich, and he learned from the Maggid directly, and he studied with him, say, once a week. He went to his Kabbalah 1 class, and, he learned more and more and more, and he studied with him, and slowly he's losing his money and losing his business and losing his employees, and he's losing more money, and he's learning more, and he's understanding more, and he's awakened more, and he's losing more money, and he's losing more business. And eventually he's left with more or less nothing. And he's forced to travel back to his home, to Anapoli, to Reb Zusha, and he goes to Reb Zusha, he's like, I don't understand what happened to me. And Reb Zusha says to him, it's not that the Maggid is a bad teacher, and it's not that I'm a great teacher, but I was your teacher. And I was your teacher for this period of time. And you chose through your own idea, not through some truthfulness, not through some divine inspiration, but you chose through your own, maybe you could say ego or greed or desire, even if you don't call it negative, even if you don't add a negative trait to it. You made this choice, this idea that I wasn't your teacher. And you created this opening to go to somebody who wasn't your teacher for this time. Could it be that someday the Maggid of Mezrich would be your teacher? Could be. It could be someday you'll earn that as a teacher. If that's the case, something will tell you that that's true. It won't come from within you.
Even if he was awakened more when you went there?
The awakening, the idea of awakening by itself is not a sign that somebody's your teacher. Many of these other things help you get to those signs, but by themselves they're not the signs. So the fact that you are, enjoying more success in your business, by itself is not a sign that somebody's your teacher. Many of these other things, and we'll get to more of them, we'll get to more of the ideas of what a teacher can't do for you. So if it looks like a teacher's doing something for you that they really can't, it's a pretty good guide that they're not actually your teacher.
Kind of what meant to be.
Yeah, I can't give you a firm answer. It could shidduch. I'm translating
If
shidduch.
it's kind of like what we talked before, that we're supposed to be where we
I've
are.
heard so many different stories about how people have found their teachers. I couldn't possibly focus on any one of them. I couldn't think that this is the way or that's the way. I didn't read anything that says. I read things that say these are some signs that somebody could be your teacher.
But once
But-
again, if everything is coming from the light or the
Well,
Shem,
and again, keeping in mind
he puts together.
keeping in mind that everybody has the potential to be your teacher in a way of speaking, but not your teacher, right? You can learn from everybody. That doesn't make them your teacher. A teacher should be helping you see how you can learn from everybody, not just another person that you're learning from.
But
Yeah.
before you said that you should be able to learn, from everyone, and then now you say that you send the spiritual shopping around or something like that. Then you said that you should stick only with your teacher, the one that you have.
Right.
But you can learn from other people. You just your basic questions of life's questions and values should come from your teacher. But you can see what other people are doing and learn from them.
You can learn from the experiences you have with other people, with other things, with other situations, because again, that's all coming from Hashem. But in terms of your guide, It can only be one person at a time.
Yeah, last week,
So it should be coming from Hashem also,
Or yes,
right?
that person is definitely coming from Hashem.
on Tuesday we had a class with Robert one, and he said that if somebody wants to read the Christian Bible, they want to compare, Torah and whatever. So he says it was okay. He said they say it's okay if you want to learn, and you want to compare for your own spiritual growth. So it's nothing wrong with looking at other people.
But we're talking about
He didn't say that, because I asked the question.
Oh,
What
okay.
he said was exactly the opposite. Unless you really know the Torah, don't look at the.
But then he said, but it's okay if you already gone through the Torah.
Right.
You understand
know
it,
the
so you
Torah.
just go through it.
Yeah,
You know it
understand.
well.
So exactly, so that it's okay to learn, to get into another.
That's the type of question that you would ask a teacher. That's exactly the kind of question you'd say, for me, is it okay? Can I progress to reading the New Testament? Is that something that will create an awakening within me? That's something you would need an individual person to tell you about, not something that you should be deciding on your own.
Ellie, I'll give you a real example of what he's talking about, okay? I went to a Catholic university, all right? I had to take a comparative religions course,
Which is
okay?
okay.
When I got out of that class, I was so confused, okay?
Yeah.
It took me 6 months to track down my old rabbi to straighten my head out, okay? So unless you know what you're talking about, you can't just read the Chumash on Saturdays, then read the New Testament and compare them and think you have an understanding. You don't.
I don't think
You have to understand
anyway.
before you start to deal with B.
Yeah, I think that the spiritual.
And the New Testament is not even
spiritual personal,
divine.
like you said, what is good for me,
Well, I've had enough.
if for what it takes you to get there.
Different stories.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you definitely need an individual person in order to create that guidance in that direction.
Doesn't fit to, it's not for everybody. Doesn't
Thank
fit.
you.
Okay, I will look forward to more next week. Thank you, everybody.